Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, CoSign Digital Signatures for Life Science Organizations. My name is Raj Schlurf. I'm the Life Science Practice Manager at AirX, and I'm here to discuss CoSign Digital Signatures, what they are, why they're being used, and what the most common applications are for CoSign in life science applications. For those of you that have questions to ask today, feel free at any time to enter a question in the Go to Meeting panel on the right-hand side under the Questions tab. Before I get started about CoSign, I wanted to give a background on AirX. AirX is the company that I work for, and our flagship product is CoSign. CoSign is the most widely deployed digital signature product on the market today. We deliver CoSign and target applications in highly regulated markets as well as government. Year over year, the life science market accounts for about 30 to 40% of our total revenue. Other key markets that we deliver our CoSign product in include government here in the U.S., Canada, Europe, and around the world, as well as in engineering applications, healthcare, research-driven operations, and the energy market. Here's a snapshot of some research performed in 2013 by Forrester Research, and among other things, they list the major suppliers of electronic and digital signatures in the marketplace today. These leaders provide electronic and or digital signature solutions. Some of the vendors provide cloud-based subscription models, while others deliver an on-premise solution. And some vendors, such as AirX with our CoSign product, deliver just the digital signature engine, while others provide a more complete solution with our own workflows, document management, user management functionality. We all serve different parts of the market. As I mentioned before, our target with AirX is in the regulated industries. As you would expect, as a major supplier in the FDA regulated markets, most of the major biopharma, medical device, clinical research, academic research, government research, as well as suppliers in this industry are using CoSign today. In fact, it's been estimated that about 90% of all digital signature usage in the FDA regulated markets is using CoSign today. So why digital signatures? In case you're not aware, there's a subset within the electronic signature world that's defined by a standard, and the term we use to describe these standard electronic signatures is digital signatures. Here in the U.S., the standard is published and maintained at the federal government level by the National Institutes for Standards and Technology, NIST. But these same exact standards defining what a digital signature is are also adopted and endorsed and incorporated in legislation throughout Europe and the rest of the world by independent standards bodies, and also supported by the independent software vendors, Microsoft, Adobe, Oracle, and others of the world. And digital signatures provide not only information about the signer and the signing event, but also provide data integrity checks. So you can tell if any content that's been signed within a document has been altered in any way since the signature or signatures were applied. We're not going to go through a demonstration today, but I wanted to show you a typical signing process and workflow as someone is signing with the CoSign product. Before someone can sign, they're generated an account. And many CoSign, particularly on-premise installations for enterprise usage, CoSign is integrated with the corporate user directory structure, most commonly Microsoft Active Directory. But CoSign also supports other LDAP structures, virtual directories, or in many cloud applications, CoSign is integrated with an Oracle or a SQL database, or users are enrolled directly in the CoSign user database. Regardless, CoSign can deliver high to medium assurance digital identities depending on how these integrations are performed. When someone that has an account is ready to sign, they're sitting in front of a PC, a Mac, or a mobile computing device, and they click on a document, a common file format, to sign that file. In any FDA regulated application where 21 CFR Part 11 is applicable, there's two things that need to take place before the signing can commence. One is the user is prompted to re-authenticate, and this is typically through Active Directory, username and password, re-entered every time someone wants to sign a document. The second thing the FDA requires is the entry of a reason code, a reason for why I'm signing. These reasons can be managed through CoSign to publish standard lists across all users or specific lists for specific users. Once these two items are entered, a username and password and a reason code, then in a fraction of a second behind the scene, CoSign accomplishes a few items. First thing that happens is that the document contents are expressed as a mathematical equivalency, known as a hash value. This hash value is encrypted. It is the only content that is routed to the CoSign server. Even if someone were to intercept this communication and decrypt the hash value, all they'd see is an alphanumeric expression. At no time is the specific content, private or confidential information, exposed to someone stealing and seeing that information. Once the hash value, the username and password and reason code are received at the CoSign server, then CoSign goes ahead and signs that content with the unique signature key of that individual. This is for data integrity purposes. The next thing CoSign does is it grabs the digital identity, the digital certificate of the signer, and includes that with the signature record, along with a graphical signature if the signer is choosing to include his handwritten signature, corporate logo, or some other graphical branding. And all this information is bound back to the signed document, along with the time date stamp when each signature was applied. Okay, I'm hearing that someone is not getting the audio, and I want to check to make sure. Okay. You should be fine now. Okay, moving ahead to the next slide. Once I've created this digitally signed electronic record, the reason to use digital signatures is I can securely exchange or submit this signed document with any business partner, external suppliers, vendors, regulators, courts of law, as well as other colleagues. And they can fully verify who signed the document, when they signed the document, why they signed the document, and they can verify what's been signed and whether that content's been altered. And this is all performed independent of AirX and independent of our CoSign product. So even if CoSign is decommissioned at some time in the future, all of the digitally signed electronic records that the product's created over the initial use period is still fully verifiable, even with CoSign out of the picture. This is the value of digital signatures. So what does this verification process look like? We call it the 3 I's. And the 3 I's include information about the identity of the signer, the expressed intent of the signer to sign a document, and the integrity of the data contained within the document. So when I open up a signed file, for instance a PDF, I'm going to see visible evidence of each signature event. In this case, the name of the signer, the job title, the reason code entered, the time date stamp when the signature was applied. I can see visible information about the graphical signature. This was included. And then there's other information included within Adobe Reader, such as an indication that all signatures contained within the file are valid and can be trusted. And there's even a ribbon I can open up that gives more additional metadata about each signature contained within the file itself. Now, these signatures within a PDF are active components, so I can drill down and see additional metadata, information about the signer, the signing time, the reason code, whether the document's been altered. I can even drill down as far as seeing the digital certificate or ID card of each signer. Who issued it? Was the certificate valid at the time of signing? What organization the signer is a part of? And again, this information contained within this PDF file is literally littered with information about the identity of the signer, the expressed intent of the signer, and the data integrity. So as you can see, digital signatures are not just an electronic replacement for pen and paper. There's additional securities that are added that strengthen the trustworthiness of the electronic records. Okay, I'm going to transition now into why CoSign and talk about CoSign in two main application areas. One is for the enterprise, for employees to use, and the next is for cloud applications, where I may want to have non-employees, outside parties, signing documents. Okay, for the enterprise, CoSign is deployed today in several hundred different life science enterprises in back office operations for corporate governance. And of course, these are highly structured, repeatable, low-cost operations where many signatures are required throughout any organization. I would deem this a closed system where all of the signers are part of the same organization, as all of the relying parties, the people need to verify the signed documents. And the departments that you typically see this in would be finance, HR, procurement, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and quality management, among other operations. Now, the AirX philosophy is that you already know how to govern your business and have established policy and procedure. So our CoSign product needs to fit into those existing policy and procedure. And we're not going to dictate to you that you need to change the way you're doing things just to use our digital signature product. The next area I'm going to talk about after I get in more detail about CoSign for the enterprise is CoSign for cloud applications. So this includes both private clouds that an enterprise may want to prop up for business partners and collaborators to work with, or it could be a private SaaS software as a service vendor who wants to embed CoSign as a signature engine for their cloud service. So again, we're talking about collaboration and customer acquisition. The collaboration piece would be what I would call middle office, where you may have persistent signers that are partners or subcontractors working on manufacturing, clinical operations, and other activities that you need to sign documents. Or it could be front office, one-time signers, such as customers working in an online store. They need to sign some information in order to purchase a product off your website. Whether it's middle office or front office, in both cases, this is an open system application as defined by the FDA, where signers are spread among many organizations, and the parties that need to rely on these signed documents are also spread among many organizations. And the FDA, under 21 CFR Part 11, specifically in paragraph 11.30, Controls for Open Systems, talks about the use of digital signatures for any signature operations performed in open systems. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about CoSign and what's delivered with the product. Okay, so you can consider CoSign as a centralized signature engine that's deployed in the cloud or deployed in the enterprise. CoSign, as I discussed before, is 100% standard digital signature technology. So we adhere to the standards put forward by NIST, ETSI, and others. There's several different flavors of CoSign that are defined by different security profiles. Our bread and butter product we deliver for the life sciences industry is what's known as our enterprise or ENT CoSign appliance. But we also offer a FIPS appliance, which has a special security profile that's applicable particularly for operations within government or the European marketplace. And then finally, you can consume CoSign as an on-premise solution within your own enterprise or AirX hosts a cloud service that you could also use. Regardless of whether it's an on-prem solution or CoSign Cloud, there's a few things that we generate when we set up an account for an individual user inside of the CoSign server. The first is CoSign has a built-in certificate authority, a CA, where we generate these ID cards known as digital certificates for each of the signers. These digital certificates can be standalone, or they could be anchored in an Adobe Trust or a Microsoft Trust network. Or they can also chain up to European qualified certificate authorities, as you might see in certain jurisdictions. Along with the digital certificate, CoSign generates a unique signature key that's going to be used to sign content whenever a signature operation is initiated by any signer. And then the third thing is each account can have one or multiple graphical images associated with each user, such as a handwritten signature, a John Hancock, initials, a corporate logo, or some other branding that you'd like to see displayed anytime you sign a document. So that's the CoSign centralized architecture. Now, when we put CoSign inside of an enterprise, there's some considerations that you may be curious about. One is, how are users managed? And I touched on this before briefly. The most common setup for CoSign is an integration with Microsoft Active Directory. When CoSign's installed, a security group inside of Active Directory is created, and employees that you want to give signing capabilities to are enrolled into this new security group. CoSign also supports Active Directory Federation services for more complex Active Directory scenarios. CoSign also supports other LDAP structures as well as virtual directories. And ultimately what you're getting by integrating CoSign with your user directory structure is very well-formed, high-assurance digital identities. And this is because in order for an employee to end up in your Active Directory, they had to go through the new hire onboarding procedures and the IT security request to be set up with an account inside of Active Directory and ultimately inside of CoSign. So how are users authenticated at the time of signing? The most common setup is for the signers, every time they sign, to enter their Active Directory username and password. Now, CoSign also supports other two-factor authentication techniques, including smart cards, PKI cards, one-time passwords, biometrics, or any Radius, Oath, or SAML-supported standard authentication techniques. CoSign also supports single sign-on, and as I mentioned, a forced re-authentication at every time a document's to be signed. And the server also manages these reason codes I discussed before centrally, so that I can publish global list of reasons or give a specific set of users individual reasons to choose from, or I can allow my signers to, on the fly, add any ad hoc reason they see fit when they're signing a document. What file formats can be signed? There's a wide variety of file formats that support digital signatures and CoSign supports. This includes the Microsoft Office Suite, Word, Excel, as well as InfoPath and PowerPoint and Outlook emails. Adobe Acrobat and Adobe Reader have supported digital signatures for over a decade, but now any ISO-compliant PDF viewer or creator supports digital signatures, as well as other file formats, such as TIFF files or engineering drawings. CoSign also delivers a utility that allows you to take any printable file format, it could be a text file or a web page, publish this to PDF and sign it as a PDF with this OmniSign feature that we deliver. CoSign is typically used for individual user signing, so I want to sign with my unique identity. However, CoSign also supports what we call system signing, meaning I want to sign on behalf of a group, which I'm a part of. Maybe I'm the marketing group. Maybe I'm in a lab group, in a central lab. And 10 people can all authenticate against a single system signing key and apply a signature on behalf of the group. And finally, CoSign also supports batch signing. So perhaps you're working on an e-archiving or an e-invoicing or signing a bunch of validation or software development documents all in one step. CoSign fully supports that. And the signatures that CoSign applies can be either tamper-evident or tamper-proof. So tamper-proof, once I sign, no one can change the contents of this document, or perhaps I want to make it tamper-evident. Changes can take place, but if there are changes made, I want to indicate it as such. And finally, CoSign also supports sectional signing. So I can sign just portions of a document, maybe just a section of a Word document, or a range of cells inside of Microsoft Excel. And as long as no one changes the content that's been signed within that section, then other colleagues can work in other sections of those Word and Excel files. Okay, a quick check here. I see another question. Okay, so what business systems can be used? So in addition to different file formats that CoSign supports, CoSign is typically integrated with enterprise applications, document management systems, quality management systems, workflow systems, enterprise resource planning, customer relationship management systems. In fact, about half of the installations we do in the life sciences industry, CoSign is integrated with Microsoft SharePoint. And this includes SharePoint 2007, 10, 13, and now SharePoint Online through Office 365. Now, if we don't have a CoSign connector for an application that you want to integrate with, we do have a developer's portal, which has all kinds of APIs, code snippets, documentation, and has a forum to be able to ask questions and interact with our technical support people. And finally, CoSign supports multiple computing platforms. So it's not just PCs anymore, although we do have advanced client software specifically designed for PCs. You can also sign with these CoSign connectors through a browser on a PC, a Mac, or any mobile computing device. We also have a general purpose web app where you can pull a file into the web signing ceremony and apply a signature within the browser, as well as specific clients for mobile apps for iOS and Android devices. So this is CoSign for the enterprise. And next I want to transition into CoSign for cloud operations. So whether you're a SaaS vendor or you're an enterprise that wants to prop up your own private cloud service, there's special considerations for using CoSign as an engine for these clouds. The first, again, is how users are managed. Although we have integrated with Active Directory or LDAP structures in the past, most of our customers do not manage users across many organizations in these common user directory structures. The most common setup is CoSign either integrated with a virtual directory, which can then bolt onto multiple user directories, or users are managed in an Oracle or SQL database or directly enrolled into the CoSign user database. Regardless, it's your ID proofing policy and procedure that CoSign is leveraging for how you vet the identities of these individuals, and CoSign will then generate an account for them to sign with. How are users authenticated? This is different from the enterprise. Most of the customers that we have that have external parties out in cyberspace that want to sign documents, they're leveraging simple username and password and essentially eliminated the requirement for any two-factor authentication. To be able to expect someone out there that signs infrequently or maybe one time to have a smart card or biometric device or something similar is not a reasonable approach to digital signature automation. So again, simplicity drives user adoption and also reduces the amount of support when people can't figure out how they're supposed to sign. Now, as I mentioned before, for persistent signers, collaborators, you're going to want them to remember a username and password. But perhaps you also have an online store or some application where you need just a single one-time use identity for someone to apply. Well, in these cases, CoSign can leverage the use of a vetted email and perhaps a PIN that's texted to the mobile phone number of these individuals to strengthen the identity proofing and authentication at the time of signing. Now, we also have customers that do point-of-sale, point-of-service type applications. So in these cases, it's where I have an agent working out in the field in front of a customer, and that customer needs to sign one time. So instead of creating a digital identity for that individual, what I allow is for that individual to scribble their handwritten signature on their iPad or on some type of tablet. And then as the witness, as an agent for the organization, I digitally sign on top of that graphical signature and enter in a reason code which acts as a witnessing statement, essentially notarizing the graphical signature of the one-time signer. Okay. File formats. There's some file formats that just don't lend themselves very well to web-based applications, but others do. We found that PDF or web forms is the preferred file format. Some customers also leverage Word and Excel as a format to be used for web signing in a browser-based environment. What business systems can be integrated? Again, any web-based enterprise application, collaboration application is appropriate here. Even customized web apps that you may develop for your cloud service. And since we don't have a connector for these customized web apps, again, you're going to be leveraging our developers portal to do that integration. And what computing platforms? Again, if I'm asking some outside party to sign a document, I have no control or no knowledge of whether that individual likes to sign or access documents on a PC, a Mac, or some mobile computing device. So I want to make sure that whatever I'm delivering works on any of these devices. This includes all the CoSign connectors that have web-based interfaces, the CoSign web app, our general purpose web signing solution, as well as an application called CoSign Click, which is a feature set that can be added to any type of web application where I can invite someone to sign one time through an email request and then text them a PIN to enter to authenticate as they sign by clicking the link in an email. Okay? So again, we want to make sure that we're doing browser-based signing, no client-side software. We want to make sure that an individual can sign from any device and not just assume they're using a PC. And that's how we leverage success in cloud-based applications. Okay, so now I transition to the business side of things. I want to talk a little bit about the return on investment and the key use cases for CoSign in life science applications. Okay, so here's some results from a survey performed by AIM, the Association of Information Management, going back a few years ago. And they polled their members, and the respondents provided some interesting feedback on the use of electronic and digital signatures. Over 40% of the respondents said that they need to have at least one signature on over half of the documents they create. Over half the documents need at least one signature. Almost two-thirds of the respondents said for their business processes that require electronic or digital or ink signatures, if they stick with paper, they've added at least a day worth of time to process and complete these required documents. And finally, almost half said the only reason they print out documents today is for capturing signatures. Almost half said that half of the documents they print out are only printed out for the purposes of capturing signatures. Pretty incredible information. Now, we also had AIM poll to find out after digital signature deployments, what were the results? Well, over two-thirds of the respondents said that they saved time, human time, associated with scanning, copying, routing documents throughout the office across multiple offices. Almost two-thirds also said they reduced these bottlenecks and lag times in their business processes, completing documentation once they went fully electronic. And over half said that they saved significant hard costs associated with paper, ink, faxing, couriering, etc. I would have thought that number higher, but a significant saving in hard costs through going fully electronic. And 4 out of 5 of them said that they saw a return on investment, a payback from investing in electronic or digital signatures in under 12 months. And a quarter of them said their payback was actually within 90 days. So a very quick payback period. Some other metadata on business drivers. So again, paper is expensive. I think we all know this. Surveys done about a decade ago, one by Oasis, one by Pitney Bowes, both stating that the cost of an average paper document with an ink signature over the course of its lifetime is anywhere from $8 to $10 to $20. And in the case of documents that have been lost or damaged, that replacement cost could be as high as $120 to $150. Again, this is from 10 years ago. Pfizer actually published a study back in 2007, 2008, where they estimated for every wet ink signature they place on a piece of paper, they can expect that to have a cost over the life cycle of that document of up to $30. Anytime we have remote employees, we're talking about even more expensive business processes and expense to handle paper with ink signatures. Good example would be trip reports, very common in clinical trial applications. Or a clinical research organization like PPD, in order to expedite the completion and signatures on these documents, is spending a lot of money with couriers and FedEx and UPS. So you have a field-based monitor out there at a site, generates an initial report, goes back and forth several times with the home office, finalizing the report. Once the report's finalized, this remote resource is signing a document, FedExing it to the home office for a second signature, and finally it's FedExed off to the customer, to the sponsor, to the pharmaceutical company. Incredibly wasteful in the paper world, very efficient in the electronic world. And of course, time's money. And we know this in all operations, but in clinical in particular, since you have a very limited exclusive patent life for drugs, as they get through the clinical trials and are approved and marketed, you may have 3 years or 5 years or 7 years, if you're lucky, of exclusivity on that particular patent. And once you go off patent, of course, the margins deteriorate quite significantly. So you want to do everything you can to make your operations in clinical manufacturing, and in commercial manufacturing as efficient as possible to maximize your market share and revenue on that particular product. Okay, finally, a transition into the top 10 use cases. A couple of these I've touched on before. The number one use for CoSign today is for quality management systems, for QMS. This can be with or without a document management system. So quality management system, of course, is the core compliance platform within any life science organization. It includes all of the SOPs, work instructions, training records, and project and task-specific documentation that's used to support an FDA audit or a vendor audit. And over 100 different life science organizations today use CoSign integrated with their quality management system to sign documentation. And if we're integrated with a QMS or a document management system, this is through these CoSign connectors that I talked about before. Now, the bottom line is that over the past decade, over 10,000 different FDA audits have been conducted successfully using digitally signed electronic records created by our CoSign product. Now, you may ask yourself, why use digital signatures in a closed system like a quality management system? Why not just electronic signatures? After all, it's just employees signing and other employees verifying signed documents. And the driver here is around flexibility and agility. If I'm using digital signatures to sign my electronic records, independent of the repository, if I choose to migrate to a new quality management system in a few years or a new document management system, the migration effort of moving these records from one system to a new system in the future is going to be greatly reduced since I'm signing my documents with standard digital signatures and not tying proprietary electronic signatures to a current repository. So that's our top application. Another very popular application for CoSign is with clinical research associates working for CROs or for in-house clinical operations, signing trip reports. And I just mentioned this with PPD. Today, about 50 different CROs and academic research organizations use CoSign, and there's well over 10,000 different CRAs and project managers using CoSign to sign their trip reports today. Sometimes CoSign is used just to sign these trip reports directly within the PDF or Word file format, but other times we're also integrated with some type of workflow product, like Oracle Clinical or ePharma Solutions or YPrime, where they're helping to generate the finalized report and then applying the signatures within the user interface provided by these platforms. Within the medical device industry, we do work on field service reporting. So I may have a field service rep out there where I have one of my products installed, maybe in a hospital setting, doing periodic or annual maintenance and calibration work, and I need to sign that report. Maybe I also need the client to sign off on the completion of the scope of work. So it could be a point of sale type application. Someone like Medrad, a subsidiary of Bayer Pharmaceuticals, estimated with just deployment for 100 field service reps, their first deployment of CoSign, is they saved an annual $150,000 and got a payback period of under 3 months. Okay? And again, just like trip reports, CoSign can be deployed side by side or fully integrated with a customer relationship management tool, Salesforce or Dynamics or SAP. Lab reports. So today we have over 100 different central labs using CoSign and millions of lab reports signed on a daily basis, or on a yearly basis. An example here would be Maxim Analytics. It's the largest independent, privately owned lab network in Canada. They operate 15 labs, and they have their own proprietary laboratory information management system, which they integrated with CoSign. So the project managers can generate a report in their LIMS system, sign it with CoSign, then they can electronically post it or distribute it back out to their customers. Field sales documentation. So I have sales reps out there. Perhaps they need someone to countersign an agreement or a contract. These contract lifecycle management applications, CoSign has connectors to. One of the platforms would be someone like CLM Matrix, which has a SharePoint-based CLM system that has CoSign fully integrated. It can be accessed, again, through a browser. Product portals, in particular, patient assistance and reimbursement portals. So a good example here would be AbbVie, the old Abbott Labs Pharmaceuticals business. Their leading product, Humira. They've integrated CoSign with a web portal so that at any one of the 10,000 locations where doctors are prescribing Humira today, a patient can access various forms that they need to fill out and submit to apply for financial assistance. And the way AbbVie has set this up is the patient simply needs to graphically sign on a tablet device, and the witness is a nurse or the prescribing doctor who then digitally signs and offers up a witnessing statement notarizing the request on behalf of the patient. We also have cloud vendors, SaaS vendors, that do this exact same thing. Someone like AirX Hope, which any pharmaceutical company can register one of their products with and solicit patient reimbursement, patient assistance requests. Investigator portals is another big application area for CoSign today. And with the emergence of Transcelerate, it can be vitally important across the industry as a whole. Today, CoSign, we have about 10,000 different site personnel, investigators, principal investigators, sub-investigators, clinical research coordinators, IRBs, et cetera, that use CoSign either through an on-premise cloud application propped up by one of our pharmaceutical customers, or we also have partners that offer up a cloud service like NextDocs, Montrium, ePharma Solutions, or AxiTrials. And so again, we're targeting the site initiation documents, the regulatory packet documents that each site needs to have signed off on before they can be green-lighted and start recruiting and scheduling patient visits. Electronic lab notebooks, this is back in early R&D. Any scientist, biologist, chemist, patent attorney working within life science organization needs to sign off on discoveries and experiment results, ultimately using this documentation for patent applications, patent submittals, patent defense. And the digital signature seals the content so I can prove what was discovered. And along with the time date stamp, I'm able to substantiate when this discovery was made. So as you may know, in the U.S., submittals to the U.S. Patent and Trade Office, it's not who arrives at the office first, but who can verify that their discovery happened first. So the time date stamp that CoSign provides is vitally important in these applications. In manufacturing operations, electronic batch records, organizations like Allergan and their Botox manufacturing use CoSign to sign off on their master recipes, their control recipes, and then each manufacturing step in the manufacture of a particular product. In the case of Allergan, it's interesting, and they're working in a clean room environment, so people are gloved and gowned. And it's very difficult for someone wearing gloves to type in their username and password. So what Allergan has chosen to do is to have wristbands so they can swipe on barcode readers anytime they want to sign off on a manufacturing step. And the manufacturing steps are actually managed in Excel. So each row or a group of rows within an Excel spreadsheet signifies a particular step in the manufacturing process that each user is signing off on as they complete it. And finally, the last application area is around informed consents, not just for clinical trials, but also in departments of health and hospital settings. And the largest deployment we have in this area today would actually be at the State of South Carolina's Department of Mental Health, which is 21 state-run hospitals and clinics with 3,000 medical staff. But whenever a patient or a patient along with a guardian arrives at one of the locations, there's a few registration forms, informed consents, and ultimately some recommended treatment plans that the patient or the guardian needs to sign off on. And this is pure point of sale. So at each of these kiosks around the facilities, to have the patient graphically sign off on the consent forms, and then the witness being an admitting nurse, registration nurse, or a doctor that witnessed this graphical signature and then digitally signs and offers up a witnessing statement on top of the graphical signature. So those are the top 10 applications for CoSign. I want to move along now to the Q&A session and remind the participants that on the GoToMeeting tab on the right-hand side, there is a questions box, and I'll give a few seconds for people to start asking questions. Okay, the first question is around validation, computer system validation for CoSign. On our website, or if you email at fda@arx.com, we can send you a wealth of information about the typical activities around Part 11 compliance, validating CoSign as a computer system, and qualification of AirX as a vendor. But in general, CoSign is viewed as a black box device, and the validation efforts as such are greatly minimized. When we deliver a black box or you consume it in our cloud service, you cannot touch the operating system or the application running within that black box appliance. It's much like a router sitting on the network that doesn't need extensive validation work. Now, there's some light configuration settings and how we interact with that box, and we do document the setup and installation of CoSign as we integrate with Active Directory or user directory structure. So AirX does provide some supporting IQ documents. For the most part, our customers are doing their own development of test scripts and execution of test scripts and validating CoSign on their own. But we do have a partner network that also has expertise in this area. Okay, the next question is around SharePoint. What versions of SharePoint? We actually did some integrations of CoSign to SharePoint back in 2003. But today we support 2007, 2010, 2013, SharePoint Online through Office 365. We also support many of the complementary workflows such as Mintex and K2 that you might be using integrated with your SharePoint offering or SharePoint deployment. Next question was around pricing, and I'm not going to get into specifics here. Again, you can reach back out to us. There's two main ways that our customers are consuming the CoSign product today. One is through our hosted cloud service, CoSign Cloud, which is targeted commercially towards the individual user up through 25 to 50 total signers. If you're above 25 signers, certainly above 50 signers, then you're going to want to strongly consider bringing your own CoSign central system on-prem, where commercially it's a much more attractive offering. CoSign Cloud, just to let you know, starts at $180 per user per year, and there's some add-ons for special CoSign connectors if you choose to use them. Okay, I don't see any more questions, so I want to wrap up today's webinar. Thank the audience for your participation. And if there is any follow-up questions or requests for this presentation material, feel free to reach back out to AirX at FDA@airx.com. And again, thank you for your time.